My name is Luke, and I am your atheist pastor. She is producer Tammy, and welcome to church. Now, this is not a church that you might be used to. This is a church without deities, dogmas. We don't have any damnation here. Every single one of you is welcome. That's our number one goal, is to bring humanity, you atheists, love, belonging, and connection. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, tall, short. Doesn't matter. You could even be a Republican and listen to this show, and we still would welcome you to our church. So welcome. We're glad you're here. How was that? Was that good?
That was great.
Did you like that?
I did.
That's our new intro. That was
I
good.
like it.
I liked it.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I worked on it on the way home from the wedding rehearsal.
You rehearsed in the car.
Yep, I did. I rehearsed after the rehearsal. Well, we have a great show coming up for you today. I'm excited about this show. I'm excited about every show. I say that every single week. But this show in particular, I think I'm like more thrilled about than normal.
Yeah, there's some exciting stuff this week.
So we have Craig Wells, author of The Blasphemous Bible. And he joins us in a few minutes to talk about this two-year project of rewriting the Bible in a satirical manner. We have a very, very special featured atheist this week. Now, every featured atheist we have is special. Agreed? I mean, that's
everybody's special.
That's to be expected. Every featured atheist has something that is valuable, and they bring something. But this featured atheist this week is very near and dear to my heart. His name is William, and he is probably one of our most active members in the Yappers group, and he's just fantastic. He's got such a great story, and I cannot wait for you to meet him, because he is just. I wanted to introduce the William that I come to know and love in the Yappers group to the world.
If there was a day without William on the Yappers page, I think we would all worry.
There would be. I mean,
something bad happened to him.
If he all of a sudden was gone, or we didn't get any response, there would be concern.
Yeah.
I would worry for his safety. Guess what? I did a wedding yesterday, Saturday, for one of our listeners, and it was great. The funniest bit of irony is that the person who I did the wedding for, she found us on Instagram. Tammy posted up a while back that I do weddings and funerals and things like that. And so we had one of our followers on Instagram reach out. She lives in the area and wanted to know if we would do their wedding. So I've done a few of these weddings, but they happen to know my best friend's family. In fact, they work at their store, and it was just the weirdest little bit of irony that we found. You know, she found me on Instagram, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know them. Well, how interesting is that? So this is like my fourth or fifth wedding. I think I've done more funerals than weddings now, but this is my very first atheist wedding, and it was absolutely amazing. Like, it was so much fun to go and say things about marriage that had zero religious context whatsoever, and not have to worry about, am I using enough God? Am I using too much God? How can I use God but also be like, nominally religious? And so it was really this interesting experience. And as I was working on the wedding, because I've had weddings on the brain for the last 2 weeks, this really interesting article came across in my inbox this week. And it was featured on the Friendly Atheist page on Patheos. The author was Sarah Beth Kaplan, Kaplan. And she titles her article, "The Christian Woman's Checklist." She titles her article, "This Christian Woman's Checklist is Full of Problems." So I thought I'd check out the checklist. And I don't like secondary sources. I think it's always good to go back to the primary source. So this is from the blog Girl Defined by Bethany Baird, I think is how you pronounce her name. I'm not B-A-I-R-D. She's getting married and apparently has talked about 136 questions that she's asked her fiancé before they got married. And some of these, before they got engaged. Now, some of these questions are great. Like, there are a few questions on here that I think are absolutely fantastic. And there are some of these questions that I think are ridiculous. So I sent the article to Tammy, and we are just going to go through a few of the questions that we might think are great and that we might think are ridiculous, because this is a quintessential example of what can be right in the Christian world and what can be so fucked up. Because the way that they approach marriage sometimes is just absolutely asinine.
Absolutely.
So did you have a couple questions that you?
No, let's just do this.
Okay, so here are some questions that I think these are questions that are good, and they're good for anybody that's going through this. She has a whole section on spiritual life. So, what is your evidence of salvation? What do you feel like the role of baptism is? And those are important things to understand if you're a Christian. As you move through life, like, you have to be on the same page with those things. But then there were like some ridiculous questions, like what about the Lord's Supper? How do you participate in these sacraments? How important is it to be part of a small accountability or support group? How do you view age segregation in the church, youth groups, Sunday school, etc., etc.? What would you say your spiritual gifts are? Do you have a teachable spirit, and can you cite any examples? I mean, that sounds like such a ridiculous question to ask somebody, even if you're a believer. Like, hi, do you have any spiritual gifts, or do you have a teachable spirit, and could you just provide me with a few examples of that? I mean, it just seems asinine.
There's a lot of asinine questions on here. For example, have you ever been exposed to homosexuality? If so, explain the extent and the circumstances. As if automatically implying that it's a bad thing and you need to explain yourself.
Oh, so you just...
First of all, okay, if you have not had an encounter with homosexuality, if you have not met a gay person, if there's something wrong with you, I think, in my opinion, if you have not had an encounter with homosexuality.
But what does that even mean? I mean, what is that? What does that really? I mean, what is
have you been
exposed to homosexuality? I mean, is that a question of like?
Do you have any friends?
Well,
that are
but see, I didn't interpret it as that. I interpret it as like, have you had gay sex? Like, that's what I interpret it as. Like.
Well, I think if you ask that question, you get what you get.
But that's such an ambiguous thing.
There's some great questions on here. Do you have any financial debt? If so, explain the extent and the circumstances. That's a valid question for anybody to ask in a relationship.
What makes you angry? That was a phenomenal question to ask. I don't think enough couples ask questions like that. How many toys, snowmobiles, boats, cabins? How many toys do you want to buy? What kinds of vacations are appropriate? Like, I think those are good questions to ask. Do you want to own a home? Those are great questions to ask. Here are some ridiculous questions to ask. What are your standards of propriety in dress? How do you dress? Describe your standards of dress for women specifically. This is one of my favorite ones. What are your views of public swimming? What does that mean? Does that mean, can I wear a two-piece? Does that mean, do we have to wear T-shirts when we go to the pool? Like, what is your view of public swimming mean? When do you watch television and R-rated movies? Do you watch PG-rated movies? What were the last 5 movies that you watched?
I mean, that's like a getting to know you type question. I can see that. There's a lot of questions on here that, like, you encounter those articles that are like 10 things to ask your significant other before you get married, but they all assume that you've already known each other for a long time and know everything else about each other. But a lot of the questions on here are like introductory questions. Do you have any pets?
What tendencies do you have toward prejudice or racism? Great question.
But you should already know that if you know the person.
But you know what annoys me about so many of these questions? These can be found out if you just are around a person.
Right.
Like, if you Christians don't live together before they get married, but if you would just move in with someone and live with them or date them, and here's the thing. If you just have sex and move in with someone, all of these questions, for the most part, will be answered in time.
Right, but here's a really stupid one.
Yes.
Where will you buy clothes? Department stores, thrift stores, in between? Why? Who the fuck cares?
Doesn't that go back to how do you spend your money? Like, isn't that?
I guess it kind of does. Is that what the point of her question is?
I think so.
Or they're trying to make sure that he's not going to go shopping at any stores where he might buy racy clothes.
Oh, like a Victoria's Secret or a Fredericks of Hollywood. Does that still exist? Fredericks of
No, they
Hollywood?
went out of business.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
I loved their catalogs.
I bet you did.
Those catalogs used to stick together when I was a teenager. The pages used to stick together on those. Oh, yeah. Yeah, those were the good ones. Those were the good. Victoria's Secret was like softcore compared to the Fredericks of Hollywood.
True. That's true.
All right, so we'll wrap it up with these questions: past sins and confessions. This is all the way at the bottom. These were some of my favorite ones. Are you a virgin? If not, please explain. I think that's reasonable. It's a reasonable question to ask.
Right, but that's a question you probably would figure out pretty early on.
Especially if there's bleeding. Next, along with are you a virgin? Did you ask forgiveness of your partner? So what are you supposed to do? Like what partner?
Oh,
yeah. Like, am I supposed to?
I'm assuming that's linked with the question before that.
Right. Am I supposed to?
Oh, so, say you consensually had sex with someone in high school. Oh, well, did you apologize to her for that?
Hi, Susie. Hi. Yeah, this is John, and I just wanted to. I'm dating someone now. Her name is Jennifer, and oh, thank you. She's so wonderful. I know you wanted to hear from me, because we dated in high school. I just wanted to ask your forgiveness for boning you when we were in high school. Yeah. Is that what you're supposed to do?
Click.
Yeah, exactly. If she even answers. Were you or are you involved with any of the following? Here's the first one. Constant thoughts about sex.
Are you male? Yes.
Well, okay. Before we throw the male thing on it, producer Tammy, I know a female who's constantly thinking about sex too.
Yes, but men are statistically proven to think about sex more often than women.
True. But still. So constant thoughts about sex. Yes. Are you or were you involved with masturbation? Are you or were you involved with homosexuality, pornography, X-rated videos, games, and internet sites? If you are involved in any of those activities, or if you were involved in any of those activities but are not now, why did you stop? If you are still involved, are you willing to seek outside counsel? So porn is bad. Masturbation is bad. I would imagine if you're with someone straight, you wouldn't want them to be having homosexual sex.
Probably have an inkling if they were.
Yeah, you figure it out, I think.
Can I please read the next one?
Yes, please do.
How do you plan to keep you and your loved one from falling into sexual sin prior to marriage?
Oh, it said prior to marriage. I had my cursor was covering up the prior to marriage. Oh. So, how do you plan on staying a virgin before marriage is what that means, I think. I mean, implication is that, especially with this chick, she's not having sex. This woman is not having sex before she's married.
Let's pretend that we're Christian, okay?
Okay.
For a minute.
Let me put my Christian goggles on. All right.
Okay, you ready?
They on, yes.
So, Luke, how do you plan to keep you and I from falling into sexual sin prior to marriage?
Well, let me tell you how I wanted to do that when I was a Christian. Never be alone in the same room. Never be alone in a car. Never be out past 10. Don't drink when we're around each other. Never put yourself in a compromising situation. Keep the doors open all the time. Don't lay together on the couch when the parents aren't home. Don't be alone in the house. Basically, don't do anything fun.
Holding hands.
Let's hold hands outside in public. And is there anything in your past that I would be surprised by if I found out?
Oh, are you asking me?
No, that's the last question.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
Which I think is also, that's a reasonable
it's a valid
question. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, like you'd want to probably know if someone was previously married or has a kid floating around out there someplace.
Yeah. And we'll leave it at this. Before we move on to our interview with Craig Wells, what are expectations about situations where one of us might be alone with someone of the opposite sex? Any thoughts on that?
When I read that question, I was like, she wants him to not have any female friends, and if he does, how do you plan to stop yourself from having sex with her?
Well, and that really is the kind of the Billy Graham, Mike Pence rule. I mean, so they call that the Billy Graham rule. And there's okay, I hate to say this. There's some validity to that because if you are alone with someone that you don't know, then that could cause trouble. There could be accusations, something could happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like one of my best friends is a girl. Like you knew that when we started dating. So she and I go do things together all the time, and there's no concern about anything happening between the two of us because we've known each other forever. So I think it's different when you're talking about that kind of circumstance as opposed to just like randomly being alone in a room. But I think that's just that kind of prudishness just makes things awkward. Like, so are you not supposed to drive a coworker home when, like, if a female coworker needs a ride home, you're not supposed to give her a ride home? What are you supposed to do with those things? It's kind of crazy when you think about it, to just get so involved. But if you want those 136 questions to ask your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend just to have fun, we will put the links of those up in the show notes for you to go to. We will be right back with Craig Wells, author of The Blasphemous Bible.
Hi, this is producer Tammy. If this show has had an impact on your life, please consider supporting it financially. You can go to youratheistpastor.org or visit our Patreon page at patreon.com. Search for Your Atheist Pastor. You'll have access to past audio from our live Q&As, our monthly Patreon-only show, and even an invite to our super secret Skype calls. You'll also have access to our eternal gratitude, and who doesn't want that? Thank you for your support.
My guest today is Craig Wells. Craig is the author of The Blasphemous Bible. It's the Bible completely rewritten in a satirical, let me just read the back. It says, rewritten in their entirety, these blasphemous New and Old Testaments are an attempt at a reversal of morals, a dialectical approach to the truth in which the opposite is mirrored against the established with the goal of producing a new transcendent truth, uniting the two contradictory views. Craig, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So I want to read. I just to give people an idea of what this is. I want to read a couple of passages from the Blasphemous Bible that I found. I think that are somewhat familiar to most folks, but that I thought were hilarious. So let's start with creation. In the beginning, God designed the heavens and the earth. The angels did all the labor. And the earth was without form, dark and void of anything, just like God designed it. Then God said, no, this won't do. I keep tripping over my tools. Let there be light. And the angels created light, and God didn't like it, and said the light interrupted his nap time. So the angels separated light from dark and thought it was an ingenious idea. God did as well, and took credit for all of it. Then God called the light day and the darkness night, and God slept at night, and the angels did not, because they were on shift work. Then God said, I don't like the earth so close to heaven. It blocks my window. Move it. The angels made it so, and when God saw it, he demanded that it be moved 2 inches to the left. The angels moved it, and God demanded it be moved up a 1/4 inch. This continued until God eventually approved. And that's just a little brief excerpt of the creation story. And then probably one of my favorite parts was when I was reading the New Testament about the birth of Jesus. And the book of Matthew says this. Now Mary was espoused to Joseph, and before the two came together, she discovered that she was with child. She worried, for Joseph was a jealous man, who would stone her if he found that Mary lied with another man before lying with him. So she came to Joseph and said, I bring you good tidings of great joy. And the angel of the Lord visited me in the night and told me that I shall carry the Son of God, who will show us the path of salvation. He shall be born of a virgin, so that all know he is the miracle child, and we shall name him Jesus, for he will cleanse us of all sins. It's my favorite part of this. Now Joseph was a stupid man who believed the words of his beloved Mary, and he was also a man of honor, so he took her as his wife, and he knew not the lust of Mary until after the firstborn child was born, and Joseph looked a lot like Jacob, the elder brother. And Jesus looked a lot like Jacob, the elder brother of Joseph. So it's a little bit of an idea about the blasphemous Bible. So, Craig, I have to know, what inspired you to do this?
Years of growing up in a strict religious family where I questioned everything and was turned down. The inspiration came when I was staying with my parents, working one job, living in a different city. While I was having a nap before work, I just looked up, saw the King James Bible, and thought, why hasn't anybody ever rewrote this sarcastically? And that kind of led me to rewrite the Bible.
So tell me a little bit about your religious background. How long have you been an atheist, and what was your religion when you were not?
I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and the best way to describe that is Jews for Jesus. Pretty much everything was strict kosher. Friday sunset to Saturday sunset, we lived like Mennonites.
Wow.
No, we weren't even allowed caffeine because that was considered a drug.
Man, that's crazy.
It was. Went to a strict Seventh-day Adventist school till I managed to get my sister and I out through some rather extreme methods.
And now, when you say get out, I mean, do you mean like get out, like emancipation, like away from the family, or just out of the school?
Out of the school.
Okay.
I managed to get myself expelled and take my sister with me.
Oh, congratulations. Good for you.
Thank you.
Can I ask what your extreme measures were to get you expelled?
That I am a bit hesitant to say because it was, well, that extreme.
Fair enough. I understand. I get that. So what was it that what happened to kind of get you on this path to non-belief?
A lot of hypocrisy I witnessed in the church, for one, even when I was young and didn't really know better to question religion.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the final straw was when I would see people in the church community, someone needs help, well, I'll pray for them. No, get up your butt, actually do something for them. Don't, before you go to bed or at the dinner table or some church gathering, pray for them.
Yeah, that's a big thing that comes up a lot when we're down here. 'Cause we're a little south of you. You're up in Canada. That comes up down here every time there's a school shooting. All the politicians come out and they say, "Oh, our thoughts and prayers are with those who were part of the shooting." Blah 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 blah. And the frustration is, well, thoughts and prayers don't do much.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So you saw the hypocrisy, you saw the double-mindedness. Was there? I mean, you're obviously a smart guy because you rewrote the entire Bible. So, what were some of those mental barriers that you ran into?
You mean mental barriers in rewriting the book, or just becoming an atheist?
We'll get to those in a second. But what were some of the mental barriers that you ran into in religion itself? So I want people to get a sense of the person who wrote this, because the Bible, was written by God, allegedly. Really, it was written by men inspired by God, quote unquote. And so that's one of those interesting things when you look at the Gospels, when you look at the letters of Paul. We try to understand Paul. We try to understand these different writers. We try to understand Moses, to understand the first 5 books of the Bible. But I want to understand the guy who rewrote the Bible, because I think your story is just as important as the work you did, and just as important as the work that your story inspired, if that makes sense.
It does, thank you. I read a lot when I was younger, and I read a lot of books that most people will consider above my age. And when I was about maybe 8 or 9 years old, I picked up the King James Bible and started reading it.
Oh, the King James, man.
The King James, yes.
That's the only, that's the most divinely inspired version there is.
Oh, of course. It's the go-to version. And as I'm reading it in my 9-year-old self, and I'm reading things that just weren't taught in the church, weren't taught by the pastors. And I go up to the pastors. The biggest example I can think of, the 2 Kings, I believe, chapter 6, towards the tail end. There is a woman who eats her own baby.
Mm.
And I remember going up to my pastor, what's this in the Bible about a woman eating her child and then going to the king about it? I believe the king of Jerusalem or Judah. What are you talking about? It's not in the Bible. Well, here it is right here. And every pastor, deacon, authority figure in the church will read it. Well, you're taking it out of context.
Of course you are. It's always out of context. Stuff
Always
we don't
out
like.
of context. I hear that excuse a lot. Every time I question something that they deem uncomfortable or, in the most part, just simply not know because they've never actually read the Bible to completion, they never answer my question as a child. They just find an excuse. Out of context, that's the way it was back then. The laws were different. The cultures were different. You have to take account of historical times.
But yet when there's something that they want, like a perfect example, tattoos, right? So I would imagine in your denomination, tattoos were very taboo to put two words
Yes,
together.
my mother had a heart attack when I first got mine.
Right, exactly, because there's a verse in Leviticus that says you shouldn't tattoo your body. There's also a verse in Leviticus that says you shouldn't wear cloth of two different types of fabric. There's also a verse that says you shouldn't shave your face. And so how do we choose context? It seems like people choose context when they want to rather than actually like holding to it in consistency, which is frustrating.
Well, that tends to be the truth of the faithful now, isn't it? They pick and choose. They always pick and choose, and I know this because I saw it growing up in the church. I remember this when my father discovered that Barks root beer had caffeine. Well, suddenly we were allowed to have caffeine in the house. As was most of the Seventh-day Adventists.
Wait. So when your father found out that Barks had caffeine, you were then allowed to have it?
Yes.
So he made an exception because that's something he wanted.
Yes.
Oh. What do you know?
Of course.
Wow.
As I said, that seems to be common, not just with religious, but with people in general. If there's something they want, they'll justify a reason for it to happen. Or, for example, let's take the American point of view. Trump detaining kids in camps.
Yeah.
Well, the Democrats passed a law, I have to follow it. Trump's the president. He can change the law if he so desires.
Absolutely.
I am right on this. I am Canadian. I don't know much about American politics, but if Trump wanted to repeal the law, he could. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, so the argument here is from the Democrats, and so Trump is blaming the Democrats for this law. He claims I'm only enforcing the law. The problem is, like, Trump has signed probably hundreds of executive orders since he's been president, many of them absolutely meaningless, but he still does it because whenever Donald Trump wants to do something, he does it. And the House and the Senate are both controlled by Republicans. So theoretically, and the Democrats are behind, changing this law anyway. So if Donald Trump really wanted to change the law, he could. All he would have to do is put pressure on Congress to make it happen. But the thing is, and it's very clear to anybody with a brain, that Donald Trump blames other people when he just doesn't give a shit, and then he takes credit for stuff that he never does. I mean, that's just kind of been his thing.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so, and it's very similar to the evangelical Christians that we have here in the U.S. who are, when Bill Clinton cheated on, when he had his big scandal with Monica Lewinsky, they were big about Oh, family values. We're values voters. We need someone with our Christian values in the White House. And then
I believe I remember. I think it was Billy Graham saying, "How can you trust a president if he can't be honest with his family? He's only going to naturally lie to the American people."
I don't. That sounds like something he would say. I don't know. I mean that's very consistent with the evangelical belief system. I don't know for sure if Graham said that. I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
I don't even know if it was Graham, but there was someone who said a similar quote because the people in my church were all over that one.
So Craig? How did your life change once? Well, let me ask this first. When was that? When did you realize you were an atheist? What happened to make you go, "Oh wow, I don't really believe in God anymore"?
I think I've always been somewhat of an atheist because I've always been skeptical. It's just I never knew what I was when I was young.
Yeah.
I guess it was confirmed when shortly after I got kicked out of the Adventist school and I was open to other people because we live, again, in the Adventist school. We hung out with Adventists. They claimed to be open-minded people. We pretty much resided in our own little community. Going to a public school, it was almost like going to a completely different culture. And now my mind is open to the rest of the world. And I'm listening to people and just going, there is no way this can be right. And once I started questioning even more and asking myself the right questions, it just dawned on me. No way can there be any sort of God, any sort of deity, any sort of creator. And as I studied science and evolution in my own spare time, it just confirmed to me. There is no belief in evolution. It's a fact. You either know it or not. And once that final stepping stone in my ascension to atheism was placed, I guess out when it was finally confirmed for me, yes, I am most definitely an atheist.
How did that feel? Once you became an atheist, how did life change, or did it change? I mean, what did that open you up to do?
Oh, I was a lot happier for one. It opened up my mind to infinite possibilities. I just generally became a better person. I was happier. I don't like using the term more enlightened, but it felt enlightening. Things that didn't make sense before suddenly made sense.
Yeah.
And it was just a life-changing experience.
And so when did the inspiration to rewrite the Bible come into view? Was that always there? Was that something where you were like, when you were a kid, you're like, one day I am going to grow up and rewrite the entire Bible, word, the whole damn thing? Or was that something that kind of grew over time? Like, what if I did this? What if I actually rewrote the whole Bible?
That was an idea that popped in my head once, and I just went with it.
So
I've always had a knack for writing specifically for satire. Usually morbid satire that people either don't understand or don't want to understand.
Right.
The idea came to me, and I went, you know what? This is too good an idea. I gotta do it.
Yeah. So how long did this take?
2 years, possibly less.
Less than 2 years?
Less than 2 years.
Oh, shut your mouth. Did you ever leave the house?
When I was in the house, this is what I did. And I remember when I came up with this idea, and I'm telling my friends and family, I'm going to rewrite the Bible satirically, call it the Blasphemous Bible. None of them believed me. None of them.
So how did so what's your background in? I mean, educationally, how did you approach writing something like this? Did you research the the history? Did you research the composition? Did you research redaction and all those kinds of things? I mean, what was the process like of taking a book like this where there are volumes of commentaries written on verses or books? I mean, Matthew's got thousands of commentaries. Mark has got thousands of commentaries. How were you able to take all? I'm fascinated by the fact that you were able to take like all the information that's out there and synthesize it, back into a satirical writing of it. So how did you do that?
Honestly, I just took the Bible home with me, read a couple chapters, rewrote it. Read a couple chapters, rewrote it. My knowledge of biblical history, biblical composition, the myths of the Bible was a factor into it, but as far as actually going to a university or a library and doing research, I actually did very little unless there was something that really piqued my interest.
So tell me about some of the areas that piqued your interest.
Again, going back to the woman eating her child. According to the history volumes that I read, at the time it was, I believe, Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar, pretty much had Jerusalem under siege. And not necessarily in the Bible, but books I read, Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon in general were God's temporary chosen people at the time. God cursed Israel because Solomon built a better house in the temple. Petty reason, by the way. But I remember researching that, just trying to understand why. Well, for one, how can I rewrite this? Because it's a common theme in the Old Testament. God's going to curse his chosen people to the point where fathers will eat sons and mothers will eat daughters.
That's what he does for his chosen people.
For his chosen people.
So it sucks if you're not chosen.
No. But then again, who'd want to be?
Right. It's almost as bad being chosen as it is as it's not chosen. So when I was looking through this, Craig, I had a question for you and I couldn't wait to ask it. You wrote the Gospel of John in a completely different format than most of the other books. Why? What inspired that? Because it's written differently. It starts with, observational notes of Earth. So, I mean, my guess is that it's kind of being written, like by an alien.
It is.
So tell me about how that came about.
When I originally started rewriting the Bible, long before I even got to the Gospels, I was always curious how would I approach the Gospels, because it's pretty much 4 books more or less telling the same story. Should I just rewrite Matthew, Mark, read Matthew, Luke, read Matthew, John, read Matthew? Might get the point across, but I decided no, so I wrote the Gospels all somewhat differently. And by the time I got to John, it was just sort of a fed up. I was fed up of having to rewrite the same stories, the same overall miracles over and over and over again. So I just decided, you know what? I'm going to do a completely different approach. and I wrote it in the style of somewhat of a science fiction short story.
Yeah.
It was, well, when I spoke to my sister about it, she said that was a bad idea. She might be right, but it's in print now, a bit too late.
Nothing you can do about it.
Oh well.
So what was the hardest book of the Bible to rewrite?
Leviticus.
Oh, I didn't even think about Leviticus. Yeah.
Leviticus.
Yeah, because it's just all the laws.
Yes, and all the sacrifices, gory sacrifices, made absolutely boring. The Bible is the most horrific novel, so poorly written that it is just bland. Just bland.
It's like one of
They
the best-selling books in the world, Craig. You're calling it bland?
No one reads it. It is the best-selling book that no one reads.
They just read the excerpts. They're like, my pastor told me to read this verse. I'll read that one.
Of course. You read what your pastor or priest tells you to read and nothing else.
What was your favorite book to rewrite?
Songs of Solomon.
Oh, yeah! Woo! That's some steamy romance novel over there.
That it was. It was easy. I just went with it. Again, my morbid sense of humor, it was too easy. I couldn't help myself.
When you were doing this project, now that you're, as you were going through this, I mean, you read the whole Bible, which is something I've never done. It's something a lot of believers never did. You know, most of us, once we started reading just enough of the Bible, we started to question what we were doing. So, what was kind of the most surprising? You know, you talked about the woman who ate her baby, but as you went through this process of reading and rewriting, what was surprising about it? Was there anything that when you came at the end, you were like, wow, I didn't necessarily think that I was going to read that or I was going to experience that going through this process?
I can't remember which prophet it was. I want to say Elijah or Eliza, but those are the two obvious ones. God teaches one of his prophets necromancy, where he is able to raise an army from the dead, from fallen soldiers. Quite literally, a zombie army. And then nothing is mentioned about it ever again. Nothing.
It's like the Nephilim, the sons of God who come down and impregnate women or whatever. Like they're mentioned one time and then they're just whoosh, gone.
Yeah, I believe that's why God decreased mankind's life expectancy. They were actually going to revolt.
Oh.
And God said, nope, can't have that happening. Can't have my horny sons impregnating these women either. And then it's never mentioned again, save for the children, There's mentions of Goliath, there's mentions of Goliath's brothers. Other various times giants are mentioned in the Bible. But if you don't remember, those giants are the sons of God's sons. Very easy to forget.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I know that's come up a lot. That comes up when you talk David and Goliath, and you talk like, oh, maybe Goliath was, the Nephilim, and then it's like, well, if God has sons, what's so special about Jesus? And it presents really challenging theological issues when you actually start to look at things in detail.
Another question I asked my pastors and when I was questioning them when I was about 8 or 9 years old. Why does God have more sons, yet Jesus is his only son? That, he explained, was drivel.
Oh.
Yeah.
So no, that's so weird. There's just no attempt to explain anything. It's almost like, don't question us, just do what we say.
Yes.
I never was in a situation like that. When I was in church, I never thought that I couldn't ask a question. There were just a lot of the questions that I had that either went unanswered or they just they were answered sufficiently enough. Maybe I just wasn't that bright of a kid. So I was just like, oh, well, this is my pastor said it, so hey, whatever. So how has the book been received, Craig? I mean, when people see this, because when I looked at it, I was like, this is amazing. The Blasphemous Bible. This is rewritten, totally rewritten. I mean, this is like, I don't want to like, I don't mean this as an insult. I mean this is like the best thing ever. This is some of the best bathroom reading I've ever encountered. Because because it's so short. I mean, you can read a couple verses and laugh your ass off, and then like just kind of go about your day. But like my girlfriend's parents are very Catholic, so I have it sitting on the back of my toilet, which is also like the guest bathroom. So we had to hide this thing because they came over and we didn't want to have the Blasphemous Bible sitting right there. But how has it been received?
It's only been out not even 2 months, I believe, but from what I can tell, it seems to be doing rather well, especially in Europe.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Craig, I like to end each of my interviews. You might know this because you've listened to the show a few times. I like to end each show and each interview with a little question called "We Might Not Be Screwed After All," because there's a lot of shit out there today, and there's just more shit every day. You turn on the news, our wonderful president just seems to just continue to be an ass in whatever way he so chooses. When you get up in the morning, Craig Wells, author of the Blasphemous Bible, and you open your eyes and you look outside of your window in beautiful Canada with an amazing prime minister who's far better than what we have down here, what makes you think, you know what, we might not be screwed after all?
Growing up, I never got along with people my own age. My friends were either older than me or younger than me. I see a hell of a lot of hope in the use of the world today. I honestly do. Yeah, I can't help but things are dressing up stupidly at times and doing things that I will never do and just think that is dumb. But when it comes to things that matter, I look at the young people and can't help but go, yeah, they'll be screwed, but they'll be able to fix our mistakes.
I love it. Craig Wells, how can people find you?
They can find me on my Facebook page, The Blasphemous Bible. I am on my publisher's site. I believe if you just simply Google my book in most bookstores, they do carry it, or at least carry it for order.
It is on Amazon, right?
Yes,
it's on Amazon. Yep. So now, is there I don't know if you can reveal this on the air, or I'll cut it out if you can. Is there a better site for people to buy it on for you? Like, is there a site that you get more money paid? Can you reveal that info if that's true?
There is no site where I get more money, but I will say that as far as saving money, go directly to my publisher site, atheistpublishing.com.
Okay.
You can order it directly, and you don't have to pay the extra fees like on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Good to know. Is that true for every book? If you go to the publisher's website direct?
I've never ordered directly from a publisher, but from what I'm seeing, I think it is.
That might be the biggest secret of the day. I'm going to have to research that a little bit. So, eighthhousepublishing.com, we can order directly from the publisher, and that might be the best way to go. And I'll put up a link to all this stuff in the show notes so people can get there and link it up and buy things and support people like you who are doing stuff like this. Is this the only book you've ever written, or do you have more?
It's the only book I've ever published.
Oh, okay. Maybe there's another one on the horizon for you, Craig Wells, one of these days.
Of course, of course.
His name is Craig Wells. He is the author of The Blasphemous Bible. It is absolutely fantastic. You will love every verse of it. I'll probably read the entire Bible now. I might actually read the entire Bible as an atheist now that I have The Blasphemous Bible. Craig, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
My pleasure, thank you.
We'll be right back with our featured atheist of this week. His name is William. A few quick notes about William's interview. There are a few moments through the interview where the sound quality isn't as good as it could be. William lives kind of in the middle of nowhere in Mississippi, so we were talking on the cell phone, and even with the cell phone, occasionally we started to drop out some audio. So I did the best I could to clean it up, but what he said, what he has to say, and who he is absolutely phenomenal. We'll be back to tell you about a few things once you hear from our featured atheist of this week, William. My featured atheist today is William. William is an adopted, biracial, Southern, gay, vegan atheist. He's been an atheist for about 1.5 years. Much of his childhood was spent in the Southern Baptist Church, but in college he was introduced into the apostolic faith and was deeply involved, and he said no topic is off limits. He's also one of the most, if not the most, active member in our Yappers Facebook group. So I have been looking forward to this for as many days as we've had it planned. So William, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So normally I ask, where are you from and how long have you been an atheist? But I already covered that. You've been about an atheist for 1.5 years. So where in the country, being as specific as you'd like to be, do you hail from?
I am currently in maybe like central Mississippi,
Okay.
about 20 minutes from Jackson.
Okay. So man, I have so many questions for you. So about 1.5 years ago, you decided that you no longer believed in God. So what happened to get you to that point?
Oh, okay.
And go.
Well, my mom, we had a discussion about me struggling with homosexuality and stuff, and it kind of got a bit heated, well, a lot heated. And I stormed off to my room, and basically what went through my mind was, if this is how Christianity is, I don't want to be a part of it. And that's when the doubt all started. I started looking at debates and stuff online and getting more in depth into the Bible and all the crazy stuff that's going on in there. And one day I just decided, like, hey, this isn't for me anymore. So then that happened.
So you said you were raised Southern Baptist you spent a lot of time in the Southern Baptist Church, but in college you were introduced into the apostolic faith. What and was deeply involved. So tell me a little bit about what William was like as a religious person. What did you believe in? You know, all those kinds of things.
Oh my goodness. As a religious person, I remember going to the fair one year, and this was maybe my senior year, and I'm 21 by the way. So
Okay.
I just turned 21 in May. So this was about 3 years ago, my senior year, and we went to the fair. I was walking with my mom, and I remember telling my mom, like, gosh, I just want to put on my robes and come preach to these people because I see nothing but sin, 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 sin. And I was really religious. Like, I was the youth leader at my church, and yeah, I was always judging people, and always denying myself. As
Yeah.
it was really crazy, and I was always looking at people, telling them, maybe not like verbally telling them, but mentally I was like, you need to change your ways or you're gonna die and go to hell. And so yeah, that was another reason why I decided to get out of that, because I remember how I felt when my mom was judging me. And so I was like, gosh, is this how other people feel when I look at them, when they tell me they're doing something that maybe I don't agree with, and I may have judgy eyes? Is this how they feel? And so I was like, yeah, this isn't gonna work for me. So
So did you? Yeah, I hear a lot of people say, and I've heard this statement before. You may have heard this statement, depending on who you've you've spoken to that people will say when they find out that you used to be a Christian, "Oh, you didn't really believe," or "Oh, you just didn't really
Oh,
have a relationship with God." So, did you really believe before? I mean, were you in hook, line, and sinker? Like you thought God was real, you thought Jesus was real, all those things?
absolutely. I remember when my mom, she was like, well, since you have strayed so far from the path, you obviously were never with us. And there's a verse in the New Testament of something along those lines of if they are not with us, then they never were, something
Yeah.
like that. And so yeah, I've gotten a lot of that. Like you never were a believer to begin with, if you were able to just throw it aside like that. But I disagree with that wholeheartedly because I remember like nights just staying up all night long praying for deliverance and praying for other people and thinking that I was making a difference. And which reminds me that I have wasted so much time, but I'm glad I got out of it this early because I can do like more, I can do successful things without religion. So yeah, I was in it, man, and I believed it. I was I was with it all the way.
What did religion do for you? Like, what did it give you? What were the benefits that you found, like when you were a religious person? Why did you stay in it?
Mm, really didn't do shit for me, to be honest. Oh, it kept I would say it kept me in good graces with my parents. My parents are religious, so yeah, I felt like I was on their good side as long as I was religious. And that's not saying that I was only doing it for them. That was maybe just like an added on benefit. Like I was really a poster child because I had great grades. Um I was religious, involved in the church, and I was the overall good kid. So I guess that will be one of the benefits because down here in the South, religion is so high in social status. Like you can, if you're religious, people have more positive views about you. So
Yeah, you're immediately trusted if you're religious, where
exactly,
where if you're an atheist, you could be more trustworthy than Brother Jones down the street, but because Brother Jones goes to church and prays and puts his
exactly.
hands up in the air on Sunday morning,
Hmm.
he's more trustworthy than you are, even though
Absolutely.
even though you might be more trustworthy than he is.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Like people, I've seen uh, people in my church that I still go to, of course, because I'm still dependent on my parents financially. So I still have to go to church. But I see people in the church that are ugh, crazy, like batshit crazy, and but people still look at them with more respect than someone else that wouldn't be like religious. You know what I'm saying?
Tell me about the church environment that you grew up in. Was there speaking in tongues, casting out demons, all those kinds of things? Was it more reserved? I mean, what was it like? Or what is it like, I
No,
guess?
okay. Well, I'm in a different church now, so okay. I guess I should start at the first church. Um, so the first church was a Southern Baptist church, and there was none of that. But then again, I was really young while we were going there, so I don't particularly remember any of the all the extra stuff. I'm sure there was a bit of shouting and stuff, but they Southern Baptists don't really do the speaking in tongues and stuff like that. But then we had a really long break from church. And at that time, when we were at the Southern Baptist, we were going every night, twice on Sundays.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it was so much church, but it was more like a community based kind of thing. So we would, after service every night, we would like go in the gym and play basketball or jump rope and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of fun as a child. But we got out of church for a good long while, like years. And then we started back when I went to college, I got into the apostolic religion, and that's a long story. But there was a lot of speaking in tongues. And I remember I wanted the gift of speaking in tongues so bad because I apostolic faith that just it still interests me. The Pentecostals, all of them. It's something about it is so invigorating and exhilarating. It just gets me. I still get goosebumps when I listen to uh, Pentecostal and apostolic churches have their services and stuff. It's just so lively, you know. And I remember I went to this church called Greater Bethlehem Temple, and I wanted the gift of speaking in tongues. And in the apostolic faith, that's like it's a mandate that you have to speak in tongues or you don't have the Holy Spirit because
Yeah.
that's evidence of the Holy
Yep.
Spirit. So I'm sitting here like, well, I want the Holy Spirit, and I really believe this stuff now. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Like when you go atheist, people are like, "Oh, you never really believed in it and all that." But I really wanted this speaking in tongues, and I could fake it. I really could because I've done it lots of times. But I really wanted this. So I go there and they tell me if I want to get it and I haven't gotten it yet, I have to tarry for it. So they took me in this little room, and it's about maybe 6 feet high. So you kind of, I know I'm shorter than that, but I kind of just wanted to dip my head a little because I feel like I was gonna hit my head. But you go in, and they have these little stools down there, and they had newspapers spread on the stools, and you had to get on your knees and lean over the newspaper. And and I remember thinking, like, I don't know what y'all are trying to do, but I'm sure the obituary from 2006 isn't going to help me get the Holy Ghost. But they they told me to just say thank you, Jesus, over and over and over again. So I'm sitting here like, thank you, thank you. And when you start to mess up, I wanted to start over, but they said, no, don't start over. Just keep going through. When you mess up, that's the Holy Spirit trying to come through.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, okay, that doesn't sound right, but okay, these are apparently the experts. So I kept going, and I went like this for months, and I still wasn't getting it. And then they called in Sister Mary, and if Sister Mary got you, you eventually got the Holy Ghost, and it wasn't long because she had a track record for getting people to speak in tongues. So once they gave me Sister Mary, I'm in there. And this is so crazy because I'm still scared of this woman to this day. She had on pointy shoes like a witch, and she always had a crazy looking hat on. And so we go in this room, and it's just me and her. And usually it's full of people, like at least 10 people at a time in this tiny little room.
Oh
But
man.
we go in there, and this is what scared me. We were in there alone, and that's abnormal. So I'm already scared. So I lean over the thing, and she said, "No, we're not doing that today." So she stood me up, started asking me about my life, and she just started hitting me in my stomach. And she was like,
What?
"Come on, Will. Come on, Will." And I'm like, "What is this woman doing?" And she grabbed me by my throat, and she's kind of like massaging it,
Oh my gosh.
and it was really kind of painful. And it's like she was trying to like force the tongues out of me or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I don't start speaking in tongues right now, this bitch is gonna kill me. So I just started faking it, you know. I'm like, oh bullshit, kid, and if you're not anointed if you don't roll those R's. So I'm sitting here, I'm pretty sure I strung together every syllable that's possible in the English language, and I'm pretty sure I said Toyota Camry somewhere in there. But so I started speaking it, and then she said, "That's it, Will. That's it. You got it. You got it." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?" And so and at that, after you get the Holy Ghost, you have to go up in front of the whole church and speak in tongues to
Oh
prove that you got the
really?
Holy Ghost.
No
And
way.
yes,
Wow.
oh my goodness, I felt so bad for this one girl. My friend's sister was tarrying for the Holy Ghost for 2 years. And she still, to this day, I don't think she's still, well, I know she hasn't gotten the Holy Ghost, but
Wow.
she, she has been carrying for the Holy Ghost for 2 years. And I feel so bad for her because I went in there for like 2 months and I started speaking it because I couldn't take Sister Mary. That woman was gonna kill me. So I just started faking it. But I never went in front of the church because I'm not a public person like that. I so after that I left there because that's a load of baloney. And people were coming up to me, congratulating me, saying, "Oh, I feel the spirit all over you." And I'm like, "No, you don't. This is sweat because I was afraid that this woman was going to kill me." So I'm like, I don't know what y'all are feeling, but it's not the Holy Ghost because I literally just faked all this shit. So, oh, I, I left there realizing that faith was bullshit, of course,
Yeah.
but I hadn't really given up on Christianity as a whole, just that portion of it. And when I came back home, we s- we had started going to this new church, and it's non-denominational, and they call themselves the Word of God denomination, but it's really non-denominational, and they preach out of the Bible and stuff. But I really don't. I've heard the pastor say a lot of things that I really just don't agree with, and he pretends that he knows Greek, and the people that are in there are imbeciles, so they don't know one way or the other. So he could just tell them anything, and they'll believe it and start shouting. And I'm like, no, this is wrong. And I'm sitting there all during service looking up stuff on Google saying it's clearly not what that means. So yeah, that's what my whole religious experience has been like. But I was a youth leader at that church, and it kind of overlapped. I was a youth leader for about 4 months while I was an atheist. So I'm sitting in there teaching. I'm a hypocrite. I was a hypocrite, but on a completely flipped level, you know. So I was teaching God. I was teaching something that I didn't believe in,
Hmm.
but and to this day that makes me feel ashamed because oh, I was leading people astray. I was the blind leading the blind, as the Christians say. But yeah, so that's what my religious experience has been like.
Man, I mean, so I'm torn because on the one hand, the way you told that story was pretty funny with Sister Mary, but on the other hand, like that's like that is like that's a I don't want to traumatic event almost. Like I mean,
Oh yeah.
to scare someone into I mean, my denomination put a lot of emphasis on speaking in tongues, and in order to be a
Mhm.
pastor, you had to speak in tongues. So I did.
Mhm.
And I remember wanting that gift. I remember thinking that if I had that gift, it would be my love language with God, and we would, it's this intimate language, and you're filled with the Holy Spirit, and you can do supernatural things if you can speak in tongues, and all those kinds of things. Like I remember believing that, but
Mhm.
nobody ever put their hand on my throat to make me do
Oh
that.
yeah.
And
Yeah, and I say it's in such a humorous way, but I was really scared that I was like, this woman has a 100% success rate, and I see why.
yeah,
Because I was really fearful of my life, and it's probably irrational, but I was scared.
well,
I
she
was.
bullied you into doing what the church wanted you to do, and
Yeah,
and
and I never thought about it that way, but that's literally what happened.
yeah, and that's not right. I mean, that's just,
Mm-mm.
and we know that now, but when you're there and you see this authority
Yeah.
figure and you think, "Oh, they have a 100% success rate of
Mhm.
making people speak in tongues by bullying them into doing it."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I didn't experience the bullying. For me there was intense peer pressure
Oh yeah.
of everybody else. It's kind of like everybody's doing it, so you
Mhm.
should too.
Yes.
Um
And even if no one says anything to you, if you see it, everyone around you doing it, you're like, may not fit in if I don't do this.
Right, and then they talk about how blessed the other person is. Like, oh, did you see
Mhm.
John over there? John is blessed. Because
Yes.
John has the Spirit.
Yes.
When John prays for people in tongues, people get healed. And so
Yes.
there, you sitting over there, like, well, I guess God doesn't hear English as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
So man,
It's really
that's
sad.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, thanks for that's intense. Like that's an
Yeah.
intense experience. what? So how did you being gay play into all this? I mean, was this something that you knew for a long time but you suppressed? Was this more, and you just kind of tried to pray it away? Like, did that have any effect in how involved you were with church?
Yes. I, for years, tried to pray it away. I was, um, toward the end of my religious tenure, I was like, why did God choose this struggle for me? Because in the Christian faith, they teach that, oh, everybody has a struggle, everybody has a thorn in their side that they try to pray, but like Paul tried to pray the thorn in his side away. But
Right.
and I'm sitting here like, oh gosh, I feel like this may have been the worst thorn that I could have gotten, because in the South, oh, it's even worse in the
Oh
South.
yeah.
But so yeah, I for years I prayed for deliverance and was real just ashamed that I was struggling with it. I had never acted on it. To this day, I've never acted on it because of the shame that comes with it, especially being in
Yeah.
the South. And it's like it's such a I'm such a black sheep in my family, from being vegan, from being adopted, from being gay, from being an atheist. With the atheist vegan part is really the only thing they know about. But um, I'm really I'm also an introvert, so I don't like to socialize with people. So it's really just it's been really rough, But I'm dealing, you know.
Um. So do your parents? I mean, do your parents know you're gay? Do they? Is that something you guys have talked about?
Uh, it's it's crazy. It's like they suspect, but like they're afraid to confront me about it, because once they confront me about it, if they ask me, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
But I've never had the guts to just come
But
out
then
and
it'll be
say it.
then it'll be real to
Yeah,
them. Like
it'll be real for them.
if they
Yes.
ask and you say yes, then it's almost kind
Hmm.
of like people who know they're sick, but if they don't go to the doctor, then
Exactly.
they don't. Not implying you're sick, just as an
Yeah,
example
yeah, yeah. I
of
know what you mean.
so it's kind of like, well, if we don't ask him, and if he doesn't say
Yes.
yes,
Hmm.
then we can still pretend that he's
Hmm.
not
And
gay.
I feel like I was so public with my religiosity, and in the church and in my family, like extended family. So I feel like it would just bring a lot of disgrace on them. And to have someone turn, like, just be, white one day and just black, just as
Right.
black as it can get. So I really, I don't want to put that kind of shame on them. I realize that it's nothing to be ashamed about, but I just don't want to put that on them because I know they'll be deeply ashamed and
Right.
kind of hurt. So I feel for that. So I'm just living life.
And what about with your atheism, William? I mean, is that something that you still go to church because you're under your parents' roof?
Hmm.
Are you actively questioning with your parents, or is this just something you just kind of swallow and keep underneath?
No, that is nothing that you talk about in a religious household. I'm and I have black parents, um, so they're deeply religious, and I mean they know about it, but every Sunday, okay, every Sunday I try to, when church is over, I like seclude myself. I go to the truck or just go to an area where there are no people, because I don't like to be a hypocrite, and I don't like religious people. I just don't. And I know that makes me sound like an angry atheist, but who cares? I don't like people that pretend. I know they're not pretending, but I have a weird mind. Don't question me. But
It
so
makes
I
sense
just,
in
yeah.
in your position. Listen, in your position with what you've gone through and where you're at, you have a right to be an angry atheist.
Yeah.
You
I try
you
not to be though.
but if you are, like,
Hmm.
that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
there's that you have a lot of things to be angry about, and
Hmm.
that's okay to just be like, you know what, church is over, fuck y'all, I'm out of here, and
That's exactly
that's
like
okay.
I'm here because I have to be because I like food and shelter.
Right, I checked the
So,
box,
so
so
yeah,
bye.
so but of course my mom had a problem with that. So she's like, you need to go in there and have some community. You need to go in. What does it look like? You saying if it's basically you saying that you're better than everybody else, and that's not a godly way to be, and yada yada yada, so on and so forth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is every Sunday, and you
Wow.
think I'd learn and try to go and commune with people, but I don't. It's like I just don't like smiling in people's faces when I have a problem with you.
You don't strike me as the
So
kind of guy that can fake it.
no, I mean, I faked religion for years, but not social interactions because it would show on my
Yeah,
face,
I
and
feel
I
like if you
really
don't like
just
somebody, they're gonna know whether you tell them or not.
yeah, because I I have no control over my facial expressions. I learned that a little while ago. But so I just kind of like seclude myself, and it's a problem, because it was at this church that I was the youth leader, so people like noticed my absence, and they always ask my mom, and she's like, "Well, Will is going through some things right now," and she's not wrong, but she shouldn't say right now because this is permanent.
Right.
So a couple Sundays ago, they had an anointing service.
Ah.
And of course, I had a problem with this. I would have had a problem with it while I was religious because in the Bible, anointings were for specific purposes. And like being anointed to be healed or to become king or whatever, there was a specific purpose. He grabbed the oil and just started anointing people. And I'm like, everybody in the church, and it's not a big church, maybe like 100 members. So he just did the altar call and then pulls out the oil. And I stayed in my seat, as I usually do on altar call, until my mom came and said, the Lord just told me to tell you to get prayer. So I have to go up here to the altar. Pastor comes with his little oil making crosses on people's foreheads. And I'm like, I tell my mom, I'm not letting him put that stuff. And she was like, I know, but just go up there. The Lord told me to tell you to go up there. So I go up there and the pastor comes with me like with a vengeance. And I'm like, look, dude, what is wrong with you? So he comes, he pulls brings the oil towards my forehead, and I kind of lean back, like, "You're not putting that on me." And he comes forward, and somebody steps behind me to stop me from backing up.
What?
And he comes and puts the cross on my head, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know." I was shaking, like I was
Oh
infuriated
my gosh, I can't even
that
imagine.
I was being subjected to this, and so after my mom was like, William, what's wrong with you? Like, bitch, you know what's wrong with me. You just made me get anointed. So we had this whole long drawn out thing where she tells me I'm full of demons and I need to be delivered. And then I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me. And she looks at me, she's like, oh, really? Because you're about to get exposed right now. So that's kind of one of the things where I say, oh, maybe you know that I'm gay or whatever. But and I was like, go ahead and expose me because whatever you think you know about me, I already know about myself. So,
Right.
and other people's opinions don't matter to me. So, when people tell me that they're going to expose me, I'm like, expose me. To expose something, it has to be hidden, and it's not. Nothing's hidden about me. If you ask me, I'll let you know.
I can't imagine being in a spot where I have to, like, essentially hide who I am,
Mm.
in order to, make the world a little bit more peaceful around me.
Oh, yes.
And so when you look at that, when you look at where you are, when you look at where you want to be, I mean, what's next for William? I mean, what's kind of the next steps for you to kind of get out from under that and and kind of go be this person that you know you want to be, but just can't be right now because of the circumstances that you're in?
Okay, well, education
Mm-hmm.
is key to any kind of liberation, in my opinion, whether it be the shackles of ignorance or whatever. But I am currently on track to going to nursing school. I started nursing school in August, and that'll last about 2 years if everything goes according to plan. And once I become a nurse, I plan on getting as far away from Mississippi as possible, far away from the South, probably somewhere like Rhode Island. And once I get kind of settled there, my ultimate goal is to become a pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon because I really love children. Not, I don't want to have any of my own, but I love them enough to want to help the sick ones. So, and I've always been infatuated with the heart and how intricate it is. And so, yeah, I want to help baby hearts.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. That's absolutely fantastic. Um, yeah, I hope that worked. Like I just, man, I'm just like behind you 100%. How did
Thank you.
how did your life change? You know, obviously it kind of didn't change much externally because you're still where
Hmm.
you are, but how did your life
Hmm.
change internally when you realized I don't believe in God, all this shit about sin and being created bad and fighting the devil and all that kind of shit just isn't real? What changed
Oh,
in you?
oh, absolutely everything. Everything changed. I was no longer burdened about trying to hide my sexual identity. I I once I realized that uh, things weren't the result of demonic attacks and or angelic attack or angelic blessings or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I just realized that I started seeing people for who they were. I don't know how to explain that, but yeah, so many things changed. I went vegan on the 23rd. It'll be my second month. Um, I'm an animal rights activist because I don't believe that. Oh, oh my goodness! This morning, let me just tell you this. This morning, my dad cooked pancakes and bacon, and they had sausage and grits and all that, the good fixings. And my dad said, "Hey, Will." My dad is kind of like the more calm one. He
Uh-huh.
was like, "Oh, you want any pancakes?" And my mom was like, "No, no." My sister said he can't eat, oh, that because you put the butter on the pan. And she said it with so much contempt, and it just made me so upset. And I'm like, well, first of all, it's not that I can't eat it because I can eat it. I just choose not to.
Uh-huh.
Don't make it sound like a peanut allergy. And so when you do that, it just it makes it feel like it's not a choice anymore. Like you're not
Right.
making the sacrifice. But I don't know where I was going with that story. But oh, about my veganism. So my mom said I was sick, not eating meat, which is crazy. That's a crazy woman, but I love her to death. She said that our bodies were made to process meat, and I was like, well, in the Old Testament, they weren't even permitted to eat the things that you're eating right now. And so how could you say that God made our bodies with the express purpose of processing meat when he didn't allow them to eat it in the Old Testament? So that kind of irritates me. I don't know why I brought that up. I'm pretty sure I had some kind of point to go to that, but anyway, back to uh so yeah, I joined the Satanic Temple, which is not really join it. I kind of follow them because we don't have any chapters around here. But
Yeah.
I like what they're about, and I like that it kind of just it's like a big fuck you to Christians because like they took over their uh, satanic figure.
Yeah, well,
So
and they also are very good at using Christians' rationale against them.
Oh yes.
and
I love that.
which is
I
beautiful.
love it. Yes. And to get a Christian in a corner to where they're like babbling, don't know what to say. Oh, I live for that. I live for it because I know the Bible more than most Christians because I was really into I've always loved reading and it's funny. I always loved Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, like fictional fantasy adventure type stuff. So that I was naturally drawn. It has so many great stories in it. And so I read it for fun, and most people think that's crazy. But most Christians don't even read their Bible. They have their
No.
own little personal relationship with God. And like, no, you have your own made up God, not the Christian God, because the Christian God is the Christian God that's in the Bible. And even then, I feel like the Christian God is a lot different than the God of Judaism because the Old and the New Testament it has two different gods to be honest because they're so different. So yeah.
So, man, so much going. You got so much going on over there. It's crazy.
Yeah, my brain is it's
No,
a
I,
crappy
no,
place.
no, I love it. It's so interesting. There's a lot of folks leave religion and go vegan. Like that's a pretty common. That's one of the common themes that I've seen is that
Hmm.
when people leave their religious experience, with the exception of like Yash and a couple other people that I've interviewed,
Hmm.
because like Yash was a former Hindu where he couldn't eat meat,
Oh
so
yeah,
so part
yeah.
of him becoming an atheist was actually being able to eat meat.
Hmm.
And then it seems like a lot of Americans, when they become atheists, they tend to move more towards veganism almost because there's this idea of religion sanctioned exploitation. Like
Absolutely.
like God sanctions the exploitation of animals, so we're going to do so.
Absolutely.
And God sanctions the exploitation of a lot of things. Um
Hmm.
so I had a question that I was going to ask you and it just kind of left me for a second. I think it's the beer that's getting to me. So you're part. Oh, this is what I'm going to ask you. You're part of the Yappers group, and you're a huge part of the Yappers group. So tell me a little bit about what that has been for you, and kind of why you joined, how that's what that's been like being part of it, what you enjoy about it, what you don't like about it, if there's anything like that. Like I don't really get a chance to talk to a lot of the people who are super active in it. You're one of them though, so
Hmm.
you and I are gonna talk about it, and we'll let everybody else listen to our conversation about it. Um, what is it about that group that keeps you so active in there? Because you're in there all the time, and I love it. I love
Yeah.
whenever I see William has commented on something, I will check it, even if I'm driving. I'll just kind of be like, all right, let me
Oh
hear,
my
like check.
goodness. No, don't do that.
Let me check this real quick just to see what he said. So yeah, I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, for me, it's like a medium for release. I don't really have a place or a person to talk about all this atheism stuff because even my closest siblings aren't really atheists. I have one that's agnostic, but I think he's still in it. I don't know, but I don't really have anyone to talk to. And when I go on the Yappers page, it's like I immerse myself in a whole world of like-minded individuals that's just like me.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I love Liz and Nick and I just love everything about the group. It's just the love that I feel in there and the openness and the readiness, that I don't feel hesitant about posting things and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But that's what I like about it. It's a great place.
We like it. When I started that and when we put it up there, I was like, nobody's going to join this. This is going to be, that's whatever. I just kind of threw it up there just in hopes that something would happen. And I can't
Mhm.
keep up with it. I told Tammy the other day, I said, babe, if I sat here and tried to respond to everything that I want to respond
Mhm.
to, I would seriously be on this page all day. Like
Yeah, I love it.
there's so much going on. It's so fun, and it's such a great thing to have you in there, and Liz is just kind of like I look at Liz. I literally, like, when we titled her episode "Your Atheist Mom," like, and she's all over in there, just like loving on everybody, just like
Yes.
this big mom who's just like walking
Isn't
around
that
like it's
amazing?
like hugging everybody, and it's
That's
like
amazing. I love her so
it's
much.
so great. She's so wonderful at it. Just everybody
Yeah.
in there is amazing. So, William, we like to end every interview with a little segment called "We Might Not Be Screwed After All." And as you think about the world and where you're at and how you wake up in the morning every day in the South as adopted, biracial, and there, I mean, I've got a million things I want to ask you about, but we're getting we've been at this for a while, and so maybe we'll have you back on and ask you about adoption and all that. But as you look at where the world is today and where you are, what gives you hope? What makes you think we might not be screwed after all?
Ah, you know, oh gosh, it's so much, you and the podcast and Liz raising her children to be secular and good children without God, and oh, conversations are being had about all kind of situations around the country like gun control. Children are having conversations about gun control, and all of these things are happening, and it's giving me so much hope because I'm realizing that it's not all about God anymore. And people are loving each other. And I'm seeing, oh, and the stuff that's happening in the news with the immigrations and all that stuff. And I see these people advocating for those immigrants. And it's, it's so much stuff. And I'm like, this we're not screwed because there's people like the people in the Yappers group. Those are amazing people. Even if it was just us, we could make a difference. So that's what gives me hope. And what you're doing, oh, I love it. And tell Tammy that I love her. I love that she produces the show because, oh, I'm pretty sure the show wouldn't be what it is without her. And um, yeah, I'm thankful to both of you for giving me. I'm so glad that I found this. Um, it was really a hashtag blessing that I found it. And I hate using that word, but it's really
You know
been
what?
a
The thing about being blessed and a blessing is that, like, what we need to do as atheists, we need to come up with a word that does the same thing, because
yes.
blessing does communicate something. And it, I mean, you're right. The show has not been the same since Tammy's been a part of it. It's been so much better. Everything that we've done, she was going to be here tonight, but she's off doing some other things tonight. Because I get all my stuff done during the day, and she gets all her stuff done because I use the same office that she works in after hours to do all the interviews and stuff. So, when she's the first person I've ever dated who I've wanted to bring into my projects, and when I brought her into this, I wasn't even hesitant because I was like, she will make this better. And we wouldn't have the Instagram thing if it wasn't for her. She was the one that told me to do that. We wouldn't be over 3,000 if it wasn't for her. I would still be living in a trailer recording the show like in the dark, if it wasn't for Tammy. And she has made this so much better. And people like you, William, have made this so much better.
Oh, thanks.
Because just what you all bring to this, what you guys do, what you say, how involved you are, like, that makes me think we might not be screwed after all. Like, there is a need for people who don't believe but aren't assholes to get together, because there has not been a single a-hole thing that has happened in that group so far.
No.
And I mean, one day it will. It's inevitable, but it hasn't happened yet. And we're pretty picky about who we let in. But it's there's a place for people who aren't dicks to just get together and be friends. And for folks like you who are literally like stuck where you are, and the only kind of friendship outlet you have right now where people who understand you is this
Mm-hmm.
community. It's a beautiful thing.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And we love having you. Hey, listen, that you've got my phone number now, and you use that anytime. So if
Okay.
you need to text, if you need somebody to talk to, you just call me.
Okay.
Because the last thing I want you to do is feel like you don't have anybody to reach out to.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just good to hear a voice that cares. And so if online is good enough for a lot of things, that's great. But if you need to talk, you've got my number now, and you call me.
Thank you so much.
Whenever. Because I just, man, I feel for you for where you're at. And I want to, if I can, if I'm just a listening ear, so you can just call and be like, listen to what happened in church this morning, then that's good for me. Because I just want to help you in whatever way I can, William. And if that's just being available, if you call, then if I don't answer, I'll call you back as soon as I can.
Mm-hmm.
But you use that if you need it. And feel free to call whenever.
That's another thing that gives me hope because atheists seem like they're a lot more compassionate than religious people, and
Yeah.
that's kind of supposed to be their whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, religion is supposed, Jesus is supposed to be all compassionate and loving
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
supportive and all that kind of stuff, and it just doesn't always seem like, maybe he was, but his people just
Yeah.
don't seem like it.
Yeah, they don't get it.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man, for taking the time, and yeah, call me anytime, all right?
All right, thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with William as much as I enjoyed conducting it. It was such a damn blast just talking to him. He's just so great, and that was such a great story. And I'm just so struck with like all the things he's come through and the things that he's struggled with, to still have the demeanor that he has, to still have the positive outlook that he has, to still kind of be in the position he's in where he has to almost live in a way that he is hiding himself in a way from his family and from the people that are around him. But he's still so positive. He's still so loving. He's still so caring. And if you want to get to know William, he's going to be tagged in all of our social media promotion for this episode. But he's all over the Yappers group. And if you're
And on Instagram.
Yeah. And so if you're not part of the Yappers group, you should be. So if you want to join the Yappers group, all you have to do is go to the link in the show notes, click on it. When you ask to join, you have to answer 3 questions. If you don't answer those 3 questions, you don't get in. When you answer those 3 questions, boom, you get in. It's amazing. We just had our first super secret Skype call from our Patreon folks this week. That was a blast.
Man, that was fun.
Oh my gosh, that was so fun. So if you're interested in being a part of that, a $25 donation per month will get you in the super secret Skype call. We do that once a month. You'll also get access to the Patreon-only episodes, which I have to record that one this week because I'm a little bit behind on June. You get all the old Instagram Q&A audio, plus if you give $5 or more, you get early access to the YouTube videos. Now, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to get what you pay for right now. You're going to get a $5 worth of Instagram, or get $5 worth of YouTube videos, because we are working on this. I am not a video guy, but I'm learning. I learned how to do picture-in-picture this week, so it's going to be amazing. There's going to be so many cool things on the Patreon. So if you want to do that, $5 will get you access to the early YouTube videos. Now, if you want to wait, you can watch the YouTube videos a month later. So they're going to be delivered a month after, in succession, beginning in July. So other than that, I don't really have much else for you in terms of announcements or what's coming up. Shirts are on sale. They will be on sale perpetually. You will get a 15% link in the show notes until that deal expires, and then maybe free shipping down the road or something like that. But we have all kinds of new designs. We have some Bible Belt approved ones, so they don't have atheist or your atheist pastor on them at all. They just have the little atheist symbol, but they're absolutely phenomenal. So if you want to support the show and wear something as well and get something for your money, you can always buy a shirt. The link is in the show notes as well. It has been an absolute pleasure spending the morning or the afternoon or the evening with you, whatever time your commute. I don't know when you listen to this. A lot of you listen to it on Sunday. So it's been a pleasure spending my Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday with you. And I love you more than you could possibly know, because I do not need to know you to love you. And I will talk to you next week.